Hello, hello, I am Sinner, and today I am doing something a bit different. I'm making a tier list. This tier list is going to be on um, Australian politics and what is known as, like, colloquially Ozpol, and just going over like the big names as far as I can tell, like, and then based off like my personal experience and the very little research I've done, and then chucking them on my tier list. Our tier list goes from based to informative to normie to I don't know to goy. So based means I really like them. Informative means I think they bring value. Normie, it's like, yeah, they're just like there, you know. It's, no, I don't really care. IDK is when I have like kind of like, you know, kind of feelings about it. And then Goy is just like, it's bad. It's bad. So this is the tier list system. Let's just hop right into it. I'm gonna try and go from what I think is most popular to least. So we're gonna start off with the Juice Media. The Juice Media is basically a channel that makes these sort of honest government ads, and these ads mainly focusing on like Australian politics. Like this one for Timor-Leste is actually about Australian gas companies expropriating Timor-Leste's natural resources. These ads are satirical criticisms of the Australian government. They're very good quality. They have like a very professional feel to them. And yeah, they're honestly one of the first things that, like, first like political things I ever saw on the internet. When I had unrestricted internet access at a young age, this was one of them that I would watch, and I thought like, whoa, there's corruption, oh my gosh, or whatever. But yeah, pretty mainstream, I feel like, and at the same time pretty uncontroversial. It could be informative, but at the same time it can also be normie. It depends on like how much you know about politics already. If you know nothing, then it's informative, but I think for us geniuses, we're going to put it in normie tier. This is normie content. The next is Friendly Geordies. Friendly Geordies is a YouTuber who does journalism and political commentary. Those are the main things. He used to do skits in the early days, and he sort of has a bit of comedic flair in some of his videos. Like this is a skit video. But yeah, he is probably the most recognizable Ozpol, like Australian politics, YouTuber, and he is also a self-admitted Labour Party shill. So he's an honest centre-left shill, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being an honest shill. At least you're honest. But he's genuinely done some great like investigative journalism. He's a very interesting character. A lot of his stuff is well researched, so he gets to go in informative tier. Even though as a rightoid, I don't agree with everything like he says, you know. But next is Isaac Butterfield. This guy started off, I used to watch him back in the day as like a slop reaction channel that pulled in pretty good views. And then his slop reaction content evolved into like this sort of stuff where he was complaining about, like, he had a whole drama series like back and forth thing going with this vegan cyclist. But like the reaction content, the slop reaction content eventually evolved into like right-wing anti-woke stuff. And now that's like the main thing he does by the looks of it, right? Where he's just doing anti-woke stuff. I can't get over the fact that he keeps using the same soy face in like so many of his freaking thumbnails. It looks so dumb. Oh, it's so ridiculous. But yeah, from slop, and he does his comedy now. Yeah. So we can put him in normie, I feel like. I feel like this is something your uncle would watch. Or like a 30-year-old who thinks, who's complaining about the woke left. This is the type of channel he would watch. Yeah, most offensive jokes compilation. Yeah. Kill all men trending on TikTok. So it's all this anti-woke stuff. He can go in normie tier, because he isn't. This is probably normie slop. Next is the Sloan Zone. This is sort of like a channel that, does some like personal political takes, but he also mainly talks about like Australian politics, and that's like his main thing. It's pretty inoffensive, sort of moderate, coded, like, infotainment kind of stuff. He just talks about what he thinks is happening and why. And yeah, I'd say this is like normie content, but at the same time, I'd say fairly informative. It's the type of content, if you knew nothing about politics, or if you had one political channel to recommend to a normie or someone who's not into politics at all, I think this is the type of content you would want to recommend, just because it's that sort of not too polemic type of content, where it's just a guy saying what he thinks, keeping you up to date on whatever's happening. And that brings me to the next inoffensive sort of explainer channel, which is Ozpol Explained. Ozpol Explained is more like explanatory rather than just like a guy saying what he thinks about what's happening. And isn't going to keep you as up to date, but overall, I think I haven't really watched this guy, to be honest, so I don't really know what I would classify him, but generally speaking, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he deserves to be with our boy Sloan Zone up here in the informative tier, mainly because a lot of people don't actually pay attention to politics. I have a book which, on the topic of Australian politics, I would recommend. If you're a Western Australian, this is I think, mandatory reading. It's called Dynamics in Government, a guide to the workings of government in Western Australia. It basically just goes over how the Australian legislature, executive, and judiciary works, as well as all the other agencies in the government, what the Governor General does, how power is sort of maintained, and it also keeps like a basic history as well as basic definitions. It's very important. This is the type of stuff that Ozpol Explain seems to like cover. I'm gonna put it down here. I think that's where it belongs. Anyway, yeah, so I would recommend that book, just on the side. Yeah, he's up there. So the next person is Punter's Politics. Now, this channel primarily, like, it does other stuff, but it's primarily an anti-corruption channel. So his main issue that he talks about and tries to spread and promote is anti-corruption. And he mainly, and this isn't a bad thing, he's mainly just vocalizing what other investigative journalists say, and then he turns it into a YouTube video which he talks about, or he turns it into skits that he puts on Instagram and TikTok. I think he's a really he's my favorite Ozpol person, so I'm going to put him in based tier. Yeah, he's number one for me. I think that the issue of corruption is probably the biggest issue in Australia. I'm really surprised there isn't an anti-corruption party. There really should be. I don't know why it hasn't existed. It doesn't exist yet. So that one can go in based tier. Okay, so next I think I'll do Drew Pavlo. Drew Pavlo is like a classical liberal kind of right-wing character who's, you know, one of the counter-jihad types. I don't really watch anything of his, and I don't really know what his takes are for the most part. To me, he comes across as like a sort of like Ben Shapiro flavored, like sort of, how would I put it, a Charlie Kirk kind of flavored character. Very mainstream, right, seems like an industry plant. I'm going to put him in the I don't know tier, because one, I don't really know much about him, and two, he gives me mixed feelings. Next, I'm going to do Ozpil. If Drew Pavlo was Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro, Ozpil is Nick Fuentes. Ozpil is a white identitarian, or a white nationalist, you might say, and his main issue that he talks about is immigration. Most of his stuff is on like TikTok and Instagram. Like, that's where most of his content is. And yeah, yeah, he's just one of those people, I guess. I don't really know how I feel about him either. I have watched like this video, which was kind of interesting, but yeah, I don't think I really like the guy. I'm not really sure how I feel about him. The problem is with like a lot of the anti-immigration rhetoric, and this is why I think the left will be able to actually do something about anti-immigration, or do something about mass immigration, whereas the right can't ever really, is that the right seems to have this like racialist bend on the narrative of immigration as a problem, which makes it really hard to sell to people. I see it, mass immigration, as like primarily like an economic and cultural issue, but if you just complain about brown people, it doesn't really work. You know, and he's a bit anti-woke and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put him in IDK tier. I don't know a lot about him, so I can't really speak too much on. I'm back after a short interval. Had to just do some things real quick. So yeah, Ozpil can stay in the IDK tier. So who else do I have? Let's go to Aussie Man Reviews now. Aussie Man Reviews is I'm gonna say a slop content channel, honestly. He just like reviews funny videos and laughs at them and has an Australian accent. But he also more recently has gotten a bit into politics and political content more broadly. And yeah, so as you can see, you know, he's done this, and then he goes back to like compilations about funny things. Yeah, so I don't really know. I feel like he's like as normie as it gets. He did an interview with Albo, which I think did fairly well. But yeah, I don't really know much about him, so he can go in normie. Well, I know a bit about him. You know, he just does like, how do they judge this? New sports. You know, wipe us out, please. Destination F'd. And then it does like political stuff. You know, it's very strange. A strange diversity of content, to say the least. But yeah, we'll put him in normie tier. So next, the last person I will review is Abby Chatfield. I actually didn't know who this person was until today. I just like asked ChatGPT about like political Australian like Ozpol people, and this was someone who came up and I didn't know who it was. But Abby Chatfield seems to just be like a mainstream lib podcaster who just talks about like progressive cultural issues and that sort of stuff. Seems to be fairly popular. So I figured I should mention Abby Chatfield. I feel like this is what a barista would listen to. So I'm gonna put Abby in normie. It's between normie and IDK, in all honesty, but I don't really know. And I've saved the worst till last. Okay. So first we have this American flag here. What does that represent? This represents American / British / foreign political content that Australian people consume, and then inform their opinions about Australia from these foreign commentators, and that's just straight up goy-pilled. Okay, if you watch Tucker Carlson or Hassan Piker and then use that worldview or those attitudes that you've downloaded from foreigners to inform your views on Australian politics, that's giga cringe. Like, at least if you're going to be you know, biased, you know, at least be biased towards at least be biased due to the fact that you're like consuming Australian content, you know what I mean? The next is these two, you guys can't see them, but the next two, which I'm going to put in straight away, is TikTok and Instagram. So, well, here's Ozpilled, but let's search Ozpol and see what comes up. Ozpol. I've never actually used like TikTok. I made an account just for this video, but it seems to be like half like shitlib progressives and then half like white nationalists, you know? There's like no in between. It seems like it's all one or the other. So, um, but yeah, like this, uh, the Ozpol space on um, Instagram is way more right wing, way more right wing. Maybe that's just due to my algorithm. I do not know, but uh, yeah, I'm gonna put both of them in Goitier. If you get your political opinions from short form content, social media, if that's how you stay up to date, you are a goy and you deserve to be brainwashed by the social media platforms you use. You're going to have the worst opinions. You're going to probably be terribly misinformed. Every single person I know who uses social media heavily for like short form content specifically to acquire their political opinions have the most misinformed political opinions. Genuinely. There's like no other way to put it. You're just genuinely misinformed if you use these apps. And you probably like critical thinking. You know, um, Edward Bernays and well, like mainly Gustave Le Bon talks about, and I talked about this in my last video. Just because you hear something repeated over and over and over again, it doesn't actually magically make it true. And social media does a really good job of convincing people that something's true, just because it's repeated a gajillion times. But it's not true. You're just dumb. I'm sorry. Uh, so that's my tier list. If you like this sort of like content, which is sort of more casual content, it's not really book reviews or that sort of thing, then let me know. I had fun doing this. Um, yeah. I'm Sinner. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.